This presentation is going to look at 5 areas: the teachings of Arius and the controversies that they sparked, the First Council of Nicea in 325 and its response to Arianism, First Council of Constantinople 381, its theological expansions, development and significance of the Nicene Creed, and some of the ongoing, lasting theological and liturgical events. So let's talk a little bit about Arius. Arius was a presbyter from Alexandria in the early 4th century. His views on the nature of Christ were controversial, and he was ultimately condemned as a heretic. And remember, in our conversation last week, we talked about heresy as, if you like, a laboratory, a place of exploration. Perhaps in the case of Arius, we need to think of him a little bit more as an example of the conservative faction. I mean, the fathers of Nicea were, in a sense, innovators in lots of ways. So Arius argued in his writings, we don't have all of them, but some of them can be reconstructed, but one of them is called the Thalia. He argued that, he said that there was a time where there was when he was not, suggesting that the Son was not eternal. And he also said, the Son is a created being, distinct from and subordinate to the Father. He said the Son is not co-eternal or consubstantial, of the same essence with the Father. The Word, the Logos, is not true God, but a perfect creature. And these ideas, of course, spark a theological debate, and that shapes Christian doctrine. The theological implications of Arianism are that he denies the full divinity of Christ, which challenges and subverts the whole concept of the Trinity. It undermines the unity of the Godhead, suggesting perhaps a hierarchy within the divine. It raises questions about salvation. If Christ is not fully divine, can his sacrifice reconcile humanity with God? And that produces very sharp divisions within the Christian Church. In 325, the Emperor Constantine convenes the First Council of Nicea to address the Arian controversy, unifies the Church. The key outcomes are that it affirms the eternal generation of the Son, and that's the phrase begotten, not made. It declares that the Son is consubstantial. Homoousios is the Greek word with the Father, and there are other phrases that were being used at the time. There's heterousios, of a different substance to the Father. There's homoiousios, which implies a sort of hierarchy, and it condemned Arius as a heretic. It produces an initial version of the Nicene Creed in order to define Orthodox belief, and it sets the precedent that it is at an ecumenical council. It is a council of the whole Church that you decide what is belief. So look at those key clauses. God from God, light from light, true God from true God. Begotten, not made, of one essence, homoousios, with the Father. Through him all things were made, the eternal generation, the eternal creation. And there was a whole set of anathemas against Arian propositions, like that one, there was a time when he was not. But despite Nicea, Arianism persisted for decades, supported by some emperors, and there were compromises, like this phrase homoiousios, which meant a similar essence, and they had traction. We're also beginning to see, it's 325. It's the emergence of the empire, which there's been a radical shift in the Roman Empire, because the focus of it, the center of it has gone east. It's Constantinople. That's Constantine's city, and there's a division between the Western and Eastern empires, and but we're also seeing the beginnings of the breakdown of the Western Empire, which is going to collapse entirely when you get to only a few years later, when you get to the year 410, with the invasions of Goths and Vandals, and in those those Gothic parts of the empire no longer under control of the empire, Arianism is going to sit tight for quite a long time. So another council is called in 381, and that expands the Nicene Creed, and it focuses in a different place in some respects. It affirms the full divinity of the Holy Spirit, and it clarifies the incarnation and humanity of Christ, and it also solidifies a sense of a Trinitarian theology. So let's look at those additional clauses. On the Holy Spirit, we get that phrase, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father. Get that? Proceeds from the Father. That's going to become really important in the future. The Nicene version of the Creed doesn't say very much about Christ's saving work. So in 381, they begin to clarify that. They say, for us men and for our salvation, he came down from heaven. And we get this sense that they're reacting against another heresy, which is called Macedonianism, which is the denial of the Spirit's divinity. But the net effect of it all is that the Nicene Creed leaves an enduring legacy. It becomes the foundation of Orthodox Christian theology. It establishes the councils as an ecumenical authority for resolving doctrinal disputes. And in coming weeks, when we're talking a little bit more about Christology and the work of Christ, we're going to be looking at another council of Chalcedon in the year 451, and that's going to be really important. There's this real sense of the affirmation of the Trinity as the cornerstone of the Christian faith, and it places the creeds at the center of Christian worship, which is really important, and that is something that is retained. So, in conclusion, Arius and his teaching, the Arianism, prompts essential debates about Christ's divinity and the Trinity. The councils of Nicea and later in 381 in Constantinople shaped the foundation of Christian doctrines. The Nicene Creed endures as a unifying statement of faith, transcending time and tradition. And what's interesting in the emergence of a concept of a thing called church is it develops a capacity to articulate and defend its beliefs amidst theological challenges.